This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
Welcome back to the Death or Prison podcast, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. I'm Oswald Newbold.
And I'm Kevin Sabath.
And back in the studio with us is Mr. Walter Dunn. Walt, in the last episode when we was talking, you're in the county jail. You don't understand anything about the law. Your lawyer let you know you're facing life. You can't believe it. Now you standing before the UN court. Let us know how that court process go, and when you in there with the judge, you get a conviction, you get in a sentence. Take us through them emotions, what you're thinking, your experience, and then once they send you off to prison.
Being held in the county jail, you can get self-taught a little bit because you're around other, inmates. Right. So after 14 months of me not pleading out to the charges that they accused me of, my plea deal at the time was 15 years. Once the 14 month came, my prosecutor added an additional fifth charge of attempted murder.
Wow.
And then heightened my plea deal to 22 years. So I wasn't going to take the first 15 years. Right. So she hit me with an additional charge, and it just became crushing. I sat in the county jail, and I remember one specific phone call that I had with my mom, and I was just saying, Mom, it's 22 years. I'm trying to, like every inmate, we're trying to think about, well, let me add 22 years on how old I am, and this is what time I'll make it home. And I remember my mom told me on the visitation, she said, if you go to prison, don't call me. Mm-hmm. If you go to prison for crimes you didn't do, don't call me. Right. So if you want to fold, just lose my number, because that's not the man that I raised. And I remember her hanging up, and I know that she was affected by it. And in that soul-searching moment, there's not that many people that can travel down dark roads. If you look at the statistics in the Florida prison system, 98% of the people in prison take a plea deal to go to prison. Of course. I was faced with that challenge just like everybody else who's probably watching this. Am I going to plea out? Am I going to go to trial? After that phone call, it broke me where, I wasn't going to plea out for something I didn't do. Right. And then I eventually say, I'm going to take the state of Florida to trial. I'm going to go fight for my innocence, and wherever the ball lands, it lands. At least I can tell my children, at least I can look them in the face one day that I fought for my life. I fought for my innocence, and I fought to be back in their life. I wasn't going to lay down for something I didn't do and then go off to prison and be angry and regretful because I didn't stand up like a man.
To the listeners that are listening right now, there are so many guys in that same situation with the judicial system where they hold you and trump up all these charges, because they did the same thing to me, and they wear you down completely, have you sit in the county jail for 12 months and 18 months to a point that it, like you said, it breaks you, but your mother, came in and gave you some life, and told you, look, you got to fight for this. So you went to trial. And what transpired during the trial process?
First of all, when she gave me life, I equated with, when they're trying to resuscitate you. Right. My body in the county jail was just completely going dead. Mm-hmm. It was numb. And, that conversation sent a shockwave through to me you got to be better than this. Yeah. You got to be the man I raised you to be. You didn't see me make sacrifices and struggle for you to sit here and lay down in front of nobody. Mm-hmm. So I took them to trial. My trial was a 5-day trial. I was 26 years old when I committed these alleged crimes, and I didn't have any jury of my peers. Right. That's the first thing I noticed. There was nobody on the stand that looked like me. There was nobody in the jury section that looked like me. So, I had a jury. Not only were not a jury of my peers that didn't look like me, it was recorded that there was jurors that even fell asleep while I'm fighting for my life. Right. So this is the judicial system that we're going through. But I could only concentrate on what the facts were, my innocence, and I stood for that. It was a 5-day trial. I beat the worst charge at trial. I lost on the rest. 30 days later, I was sentenced to 27 years.
Did you have a public defender, or you had a private attorney?
I was very grateful to, at that time, my family, they paid for a trial lawyer. He came in. He was one of the best, and he thought, now looking back at it, because I know law, he just thought he could legally battle it. He didn't know how to,
Evidence.
bring not only the evidence, but he could have brought more to life.
Right.
He just thought because maybe a name and reputation that he could just walk in and get the job done, and it failed. 30 days later, I was sent to prison. When I got sentenced to prison, I walked out of the courtroom and collapsed. It's in my book. The weight of fighting, putting it all on the line. Not many people have the heart to put it all on the line, and I put it on the line and still lost. So when they say the truth will set you free and all that, man, here I am.
Innocent.
I mean, I went to prison in an era where you better learn to survive.
Right.
It wasn't no more about trying to get home or the law or legal cases. It was about you're going to put your head down. You're going to learn how to survive, because if you get in somebody else's lane, it could be a bad day for you. And there's a lot of people in prison with more time than you. So if you upset somebody or you make somebody, do somebody wrong or do something shady that, you ain't going to have to worry about making it home. You're going to need to be about making it through this day.
Right.
And, I was able to catch on real quick. I was able to identify on what I could do to stay in a safe lane. So because I worked at a university, when the prison officials read my file, they put me in education as an education teacher. Mm-hmm. So, I got a chance to continue to help further people's minds and help plenty of people get GEDs and stuff like that. And that's what I did in prison for a little bit. And then I got transferred to another prison. And in this prison, I got involved in all the prison life. Mm-hmm. I was a very successful young man in society. Right. So when you see people around you that's making money and sending money home and doing all these things, you get caught up in that aura that you want to make money too. I got caught up in gang life. Mm-hmm. I got caught up in, I want to sell drugs. I want to talk on cell phones. I want to flirt with officers. I want to do all the things that make you feel good inside prison, because this is your life. The people I'm speaking to know that's the truth.
Right, of course.
There's people sitting here that's watching this video that says, I do these things right now because guess what? I understand. It takes the pain away from you not being home, and you focus on how you can make today the best life, whether it's, having somebody else buy your canteen, or you're gambling, or you're flirting with the officer, or you're talking on the cell phone, or this is the thing that everybody falls into, majority of the prison population falls into, because it's life. I was just doing this, and I started making a little bit of money here and there, and I started becoming a little popularity, and I became this type of person. And then one day I had a sergeant who was retiring, and she called me over there and she said, "Walt, can I talk to you?" And me being boastful and, with my little flavor, I guess you could say, I went up to her and she said, "Walt, I see you got all the attention on the compound. You're making money. You're this guy. And I had my friend in classification read your file, and you're spending all this attention on nonsense, and you got 27 years. Why don't you spend that same attention on fighting for your freedom?" Okay. And when people hit you with a good one in life, is usually I have a comeback for everybody. Right. I'm quick to have a comeback, but when she hit me with that, like I kind of, it hurt me inside that I had been distracted and fallen into prison life when there was an option available for me, right, to be free. And she said, "Hey, I'm retiring. I'm taking over the law library. I'm gonna get you a job change. Right. You're gonna come work for me. You're gonna learn the law, and you're gonna get out of prison." She sent me to ICT, job changed me. And instead of going to work on Monday, I was still on the compound trying to hustle and make a couple dollars. I bucked her. I didn't go to the law library. I'm making, $50 a day, $75 a day, $100 a day, talking on cell phones, and I'm living the life. Right. Yep. So I eventually broke. I went to the law library. She gave me a law clerk to train under. Yeah. And then she called me in her office, and she really gave me that mom talk, that heart to heart. She said, "Walt, you the smartest. You one of the smartest people in the compound." And she showed me like the little scores they measure you out. You got a 12.9 across the board. You're this, that, and third. Like you have the ability to do something special, but you're so caught up in prison life. Right. And then I didn't really believe in her. And then like a couple days later, she had a dream. She said, "Walt, like you're special. Like you're going to get out of prison and do amazing things. And it starts here. And I've been putting your life to tell you and get you off of that distraction." Right. And when she said that, I felt the presence of the Lord on me. Right. I felt like I had been running away from this for so long. Right. That now the presence of the Lord had got on me. And then from there, just like I would pick up a book and I would read law, and like for some reason, just off the bat, I could understand what the law was talking about. And then I got better at understanding on how the arguments go together.
Right.
And then I started understanding on how the state responds back to the arguments and
Right.
what you need to do to overcome their article. So no longer was I writing law to state my claim. I was writing law to beat her response,
Right,
to beat the
exactly.
judge's response, and take all those responses off the
Counterattack.
table. So when I filed the motion for somebody, I've addressed every issue in the motion because I was able now to have the
counterattack
foresight.
what they were going-
I was able to have the foresight to see down the road on what their argument was going to be and take that piece away from them. And then I just got good with the law where, you know, it just, I would pay the law clerks to give me the book so I can read the book in my cell at night, and I would just be reading, and then just like, the more I read, the more I understood. And then I would practice on people. And now there are some people in prison that, you know, I probably practiced on, and I didn't get it right in the beginning. But, you know, eventually I got good where, you know, lawyers from the street started writing me who did this motion. And, you know, I started seeing the bus come back to the prison to overturn people's sentences and get people out of prison and emergency releases and taking time off of you or giving you jail credit, or, you know, things just started to flow in a process where I felt finally comfortable enough to do it on my own.
Okay.
You know, my family had threw thousands of dollars at the justice system, and we lost.
It'll break you.
But in that process, when I had that epiphany, you know, I really felt like God had spoke to me that, you know, this is going to be your purpose in life. You can outrun it, but I'm going to continue to bring it to you. And then it just became like I felt like I was living in my purpose. Like I would go to visitation and I would see families come up to me and cry and hug and say, my son is getting out, you know, 2 years later because of you. Or let me give your mama some money in visitation because it's the least I can do. Or, you know, I got another son at another prison and I'm going to try to get his paperwork to you. And, you know, I had officers coming up to me and doing paperwork for their family members. And I just became like a powerhouse lawyer.
Right.
And then I finally said I had enough confidence after seeing me do legal work for other people that I wanted to do for myself. Like I said, my family had lost everything to the justice system.
Right.
And then I filed the motion on my behalf. And 9 years later, I was able to walk back in Hillsborough County and get my sentence overturned.
Amen. So what was your mother's relationship like with you during this whole process? Was she still fighting? Was she still telling you to hold on? Because by this time, you pretty much have given up on yourself and became, you know, a product of that environment. What was your relationship like during this time?
You know, there was definitely some ups and downs because when I was running from my purpose, you know, I was real rebellious.
Right.
You know, I had a mental breakdown where I told my mom, just leave me with the 27 years. I had an emotional breakdown. I kicked the chair. I was crying at a visitation. They had to escort me out because the pressure of being stuck it hurt so much that I couldn't figure out how to drain that pain.
Right.
You know, and I blew up a couple times, but when the Lord changes your life,
Of course.
when he gets you in his grasp and says you are my child,
Right.
and I'm gonna give you all the resources that you need, just follow me. It was a no-brainer. You know, 9 years later I was able to walk free. And you know, my passion to continue to help the incarcerated, prison reform advocate, to stop the youth from going to mass incarceration, it's became my body of work. It's what I feel comfortable doing. It feels like I'm not working in a job. I'm living out a dream that I was supposed to be doing. Before I left prison,
Wow.
they gave me a plaque to say,
A plaque, not a piece of paper.
Not a
But
plaque.
You can roll it up and keep a stage score on the back.
right,
Yeah.
or you know, the poker game, you know.
Right.
You know, the prison gave me a plaque that says, you know what, we recognize all that you have done for our prison system, and we want to gift you with a plaque with the Department of Corrections logo on it, because that's how much you meant to our prison system. You know, I was the leader of our faith-based program at the prison I was in. I was the head law clerk, you know, so I was changing lives from a biblical standpoint, and I was changing lives from a legal standpoint.
Right.
And the prison, you know, would rely on me to keep the prison population under control. So I felt like even in prison, I had a higher calling, because, you know, if you got pain and you can't figure out your legal sentence, you would come find Walt. I would do your paperwork. I would put you in the best position to get you out. Or you could move into our faith and character-based program where I could challenge you to be a better man, because I understand all facets of being incarcerated. I know what it's like to chase this, that, and the third. But when you're chasing these things, you're taking yourself, you're being distracted from where God needs you to be. And once you let go and let God take over in your life, He's going to put you in the right position. He's going to bring the right people around you for you to start moving and operating in His purpose.
Here's a young man, didn't know anything about law or crime. He go to prison. He was a upstanding citizen before he went to prison, and even him got in prison and took on the ways of prison life. Banging, gangs, hustling, phone. We been there. So I did 25. My brother here did 15. We get it. But guess what? that makes your testimony even more powerful because you engaged in some things you never would have thought you would do in your life. But but the angels started to speak to you.
Right.
See, angels will come speak to many people, but we don't want to listen because it forces us to let the nonsense go and to live right. So I say to you, as the angels come to you and people bring us this wisdom, there's nothing wrong with living with that angel because God has a plan for you. We have our plan, but God has a different plan. And I got to commend you because the life you took on in prison isn't easy to shed all the time.
Yeah.
Some guys get in there and get trapped in that mindset and never come out of it.
You know, I know we kind of breezed through it, but I want to come back to your mother relationship with you during this incarceration process. I know that when you started to see yourself coming out, or you had that epiphany, did you find yourself encouraging her?
No.
No?
No, I that's one person in my life that I could never encourage.
Right.
You know, she had been my rock my entire time. You know, if it wasn't for her support, her unconditional love, I probably would have been caught up in the prison life or have went crazy or, you know, did something, you know, horrendous in there. You know, there's a lot of mothers out there that go to visitation, that are sending money for J-Pay. You know, I want to let you guys know, if you're watching this, that don't ever give up on your child, because it may be that one day that they need to hear that encouragement. They need, their soul is broken. They're here. They're away from their family, their children. And you may be that one person that gets through to them, and it may change their life forever. And it changed my life. My mom was instrumental in everything that I did. And I will always thank her for her time. You know, I ended up doing 12 years and 9 months. You know, I got released from Polk. I was at Polk. You know, I remember before I got released from Polk, you know, I got a chance to watch some of the Death to Prison podcast. You know, my good mentor is here today. I wish they could put the camera on him.
Right.
You know, we got Johnny Brennan, we got Elmo back here. You know, these guys have, you know, showed me the way. You know, and I remember meeting Johnny, that I even went up to him after one of the prayer services that he had. And I said, Johnny, like, you're going to know my name. This is what I'm going to do. I was trying to drill him with who I am. I was trying to be that guy that walks last with him down to the center gate when he's trying to leave. And I just was trying to, like, I told my mom that night, look, man, I don't care what it is. You got to call him. You got to email him. I don't care if you got to go by the church, find out where he's at. Let Johnny know that, hey, I want to partner with him because this is what I want to do. My passion to stand against prison reform and justice. You know, we have a lot of similarities. Was like a law. He was a law clerk when he left Polk. I was a law clerk that came to replace Johnny at Polk. So, you know, it was just so, he was faith-based leader for Polk. He left, I came, and I was the faith-based leader for Polk. So, I mean, you know, I felt like God put me in a position, and then, like, these things happen, and then, like, it blossomed. And then when I walked free, the single most important thing that I wanted to do is, I had been doing law for 8.5 years. I had compiled a list of things that work for me legally that overturn people's cases. You know, the blueprint on how to navigate through the criminal justice system. And I had worked on this book because it was the mainstream information that people need to know, whether they're in jail, been arrested, they're sitting in the county jail trying to figure out how to get out of there. They're in prison right now serving 27, 15, 24, all this time and don't know how to get out. You know, I produced a book, you know, how to navigate through the criminal justice system.
It is How to Navigate Through the Criminal Justice System.
Like a self-help guide.
By Walter Dunn.
Right.
You know, I produced this book because I didn't want the people to be ignorant. I didn't want, one of the reasons why we're incarcerated is because we don't know any better. You know, we get taken advantage of. My family had got taken advantage of financially. Right. So when you look at online, and I have my mom research this, when you look online for legal books, $300, $350 or better, you know, I made this book for $50. So every family, nationwide, worldwide, could afford it. And they can have the blueprint on how to navigate through the criminal justice system. You spend $50 a month on canteen at the bare minimum or phone calls. Right. You know, you could buy this book and send it to your son and say, look at the book, look at your case, and it'll show you how to get out of prison if you have that opportunity.
Can you tell the audience how they can go about ordering that book or telling their loved ones to order it?
You can go to my website, walterdunn.com. That's WALTERDUNN.com. And you can purchase this book, How to Navigate Through the Criminal Justice System. Or you could purchase my personal story, Through Innocent Eyes, which is another book that I've authored and published, which it tells my story about, you know, the life that I live, you know, being an upstanding citizen, productive, And then 20 minutes of my life, a hurricane hit, and it took 12 years and 9 months to recover that damage. But because of what I've been through, it's kind of like the Harriet Tubman story. And I say this all the time, you know, if you really read the Harriet Tubman story, this was a lady that was, you know, chained, beaten, raped. She was kept captive, and she got free. And when she got free, she did something inconceivable. She went back and started freeing other people from bondage. And there's families out there right now that have their loved ones in bondage. There's families right now that moms and grandmothers and dads and sisters and children are crying right now because they're in bondage too, because their loved one is incarcerated.
Right.
So now that I've been free, I've published the self-help guide so people can find their way home like I have. I've also stood up against mass incarceration for our juveniles. You know, I go around the country right now and I speak at universities to all criminology departments on educating their students on my story and how important their work is with the criminal justice system. You know, that's something that I feel passionate about. So I'm knocking on every door that I possibly can to tell my story. Rely on my mentors to try to help me, to network me, put me in right positions so I can get, you know, a bigger platform to reach more people. Because at the end of the day, we have a problem with incarceration. We are putting people in prison at an alarming rate.
Right.
And if you look at our leaders, you look at our Reggie Jacksons, our prominent leaders, our Al Sharptons, they're all getting old, you know, and it's just life. But they need somebody else that's going to be able to carry the torch. And I feel like that person's me. I feel like I've been through enough in my life. I've been battle tested, and every corner I've walked through that dark road. And I'm not afraid to stand out against injustice and tell you it's wrong. But I'm smart enough not only to tell you it's wrong, but give you the solution on how to fix it.
Would you say, as bad as going to prison was, hey, I don't think anybody happy to go.
No.
So as bad as prison was, do you believe your experience going through prison made you find something within yourself and develop something you probably wouldn't have reached if you hadn't went through that experience?
You know, I wish I could get a couple dollars for every time that question is asked to me. But I have to agree. You know, had I not went to prison, I would have probably been still a charismatic guy, but I would have had no purpose in my life.
Of course.
I would have been. I would have been the guy that still was working at a university, helping students get enrolled into college. Probably coached Little League baseball all the way till my son got old. But at that point in time, I didn't have a purpose in my life.
Right.
You know, when God show up in your life and he gives you what your purpose is, whether it's to be a minister, whether it's to be an advocate, whether it's to help people with placing them in homes, whether it's starting with programs, when he operates in your life and gives you that purpose, it's just a wonderful feeling that I had to take that detour.
Faith plays a role in your life. How is faith still playing a role in your life now in the work you do? And I'm not even just speaking about speaking to college students, because I know that part. But right there in the same county that sent you away, what are you doing in that community right there to make a difference?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, you know, my mentor said, you know, when the Lord is in your life, he will kick open doors. And this is just such a great, I would never forget that, because it's true. You know, once I got released, you know, I felt like because of the faith and the purpose that I have in my life, the Lord is kicking open doors.
Of course.
But the main thing that I do for our county, which is Hillsborough County, is to protect our youth. You know, our youth is so important to me because they are our future. You know, and if somebody doesn't give it to them real, you know, I shot a gun violence video. It's on my YouTube channel, where in front of the state attorney's office, you know, and I had back, I had my necklace out so I could be relatable to talk to them about gun violence. But I want to let you know, when you pull that gun on him, you're going to get 25 years or better. You're going to get the 10-20 life statute. You better start educating yourself, because it's cool to live that lifestyle until they put the cuffs on you, and then you don't want that lifestyle. Right. So let me educate you first. Let's not even go down that road, because you're going to lose everything that you love. You like women, you like football, you like clothes, you like shoes. You pull that gun, you're not going to have any of that. In our county, you know, my main focus is to protect our youth. You know, I've tried to circle to all the venues in our community with speaking, you know, all our main colleges, to speak to our youth, to educate them for our criminology department, to let them know your work is important and what you do can make a difference. And then what you do is, when you plant the seed, you push these students for outreach projects. You don't need to just get the information and retain it from school. You need to get in our community and go speak to some of these environments, bad environments, throw a community, an event where we can start spreading the word, because we are our brother's keeper.
Of course.
If we don't promote or we don't educate our youth, they're going to continue to go astray. But when you have somebody who has been battle tested, or who has been through the fire, or who has been through the dark times, their story, when they speak to people, people can vibe. They can receive it because you've been there.
Right. This has to be a God thing, because during the whole time you're telling us your story, not at one time have I heard any type of bitterness in regards to the person that caused this journey. But not only this journey, but because sometimes God utilizes situations to propel us into our purpose, and I don't hear that bitterness, so that resonates to the fact that who the Son sets free is free indeed.
For a lot of years, I did have bitterness. You rip my children away from me.
Right.
You take my freedom away from me. When I got sentenced to prison, my mom never had seizures in her life. And the pain of watching me go, she had her first seizure in the courthouse. And, my sister kept that away from me for a lot of years. And, when I heard her condition has changed forever, it created a lot of bitterness. Right. But when the Lord entered my life and I stopped running from him, when I put the distractions down, he gave me my purpose and he took away all my anger.
Of course.
So to the point where my prosecutor is no longer working as a prosecutor for Hillsborough County. She is now an attorney for the city council. When I walked back into city council, in front of city council, and gave the speech about what is the city doing for returning citizens for such as employment, housing, and other things, she was sitting in the room, and just to look at her, I could see it in her face, like it was almost like fear or uncertainty. What type of person would I be? Never once showed any anger because I don't have any hatred towards her.
Right.
The Lord has removed that from me, and now has put His love and compassion in me to go free and help other people, because what you did to me was wrong. Right. You sentenced me to prison with no physical evidence. The state of Florida can pull all the evidence reports that they have right now, and there's no physical evidence that they have on me, and they still sent me away. They still made me go through trial and walk me down that plank and push me over. But the Lord has revived me. He has cut the ties.
Yeah, I'm a witness.
I surfaced and I swam all the way back to society. Right. And my journey now is to help other people reach the shore of freedom as well. I want to say this before we end. It's a lot of people that's incarcerated right now that carry that resentment. I taught about resentment. I taught about holding on to that anger and that frustration inside. It doesn't do anything but burn you up. The other person who's harmed you, they went on and lived their life. That girl who's left you, she's not thinking about you. She's living her life. That prosecutor who sent you to prison, they went on and lived their life. You're the only one that's holding on that resentment. And you're the only one that has the ability to cut it off too. So when you have anger and resentment, let it go, or use that energy and that passion for something else. Talk to the Lord and let Him come in your life and change it, because He'll take that same energy, that same bitterness that I had and anger that I had, and He said, I'm going to show you your purpose, and I'm going to let you operate in your purpose, and I'm going to watch all the great things that you do in everybody's life. I'm going to take that energy and channel it for something good, and then look at all the people that you affect because of me.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Let that bitterness go, and let's practice forgiveness. Just as we want people to forgive us, we have to learn to forgive others. But one of the most important people you got to learn to forgive is yourself. And that's the hardest person to forgive many times. We made mistakes, and even when we become successful, we still haven't forgiven ourselves for certain things we have done in our life. This is the Death or Prison podcast, but around here we say,
choose life.
Teach one, one boy.